Easel Kill Ya is a dark exploration into a troubled artist's mind. Directed by John Harrison, written by Larry Wilson, and shot by Rick Boda, based on a story from the Vault of Horror number 31. How dark is this comic and episode? Let's just say, these'll kill ya. Broke artist Jack Craig's work has just been turned down by a gallery owner. He imagines killing her and the sense of calm that such an act would bring him. He shares his struggles with a support group for obsessives, where fellow member Sharon strikes up a conversation with him. She thinks all Jack needs to get back on his feet is some inspiration. She models for him, but the inspiration just isn't there. In the comic, our struggling painter wanders the rainy streets. He comes to a bridge, ready to jump off and end his life, angry at the world, wanting everyone to suffer as he has suffered. A passing car spins out of control and crashes. The driver stumbles from the wreckage, clutching her face, her clothes stained with blood. Inspired by the woman's misery, the artist rushes home and spends the entire night painting the ghastly scene. Morning comes, and he looks upon the best work he's ever produced. But it's too morbid. He only knows one person who could look at such a work of art. A certain old man. To his luck, that very old man buys his painting for $100. Jack tries to keep painting at night, but his metalhead neighbor is blasting music. Jack may be losing his temper.
Fucking music down, you son of a bitch! Turn the fucking...
Now he's found his inspiration. He seeks out Malcolm Mayflower, collector of all things grim the art world has to offer. Mayflower loves Jack's painting and must have it.
You like this?
No. I covet it. Look carefully around you, Jack. These are some of the most awful moments in the 20th century. Downstairs, I have thousands more in a vault. They're graphic, they're real, but they lack one thing. One supremely important thing. The artist's touch. His ability to interpret the horror of the world through the darkness of his own soul. You have some of that darkness, don't you, Jack? You hear the shadow's voice, don't you?
You want to buy this?
He buys the painting for $2,000 and is ready to pay $20,000 for the next one. The artist has bills to pay and a stomach to feed, so the money doesn't last long. He attempts to force out another creepy composition, but he is out of ideas. In the comic, he returns to the bridge of that fateful accident, hoping luck will shine down on him and someone else will suffer a similar fate. He waits for hours, wandering the foggy streets, only to circle back to the accident site. He will make his own luck. He moves the detour signs to form a path into the bridge's barrier. It doesn't take long for a car to swerve and crash right into the wall. The screams, the broken bones, the blood, all the anguish sends our artist into an artistic high. In the show, it's Jack's landlord who gives him some inspiration.
I mean, you can imagine, huh? Old lady like me, I gotta lug this crap down those slippery stairs. I could trip, I could break my neck.
Want some help?
Jack gives into the darkness within his soul and proceeds to use the landlord's blood as paint. The old man happily buys this newest painting and offers to buy more. That night, impatient for another accident, the artist beats up a random passerby. Despite the exhilaration, he paints nothing. He is too satisfied with his own bloodlust. Fearing the slippery slope, he isolates himself for days. He does whatever he can to keep this addiction at bay. Pacing around, smoking, drinking, but the dark thoughts are overwhelming. Until somebody knocks on his door. Standing there is a beautiful woman. She is his new neighbor and needs his help with her sink. The two talk and become friends over the following days. She even models for him as the subject of his latest paintings. For the first time in a long time, he feels good. But he feels shame over his hateful past, over the terrible things he's done to others for his financial gain. He confesses everything. She takes him and tells him she loves him and wants to be his wife. Sharon returns to Jack's apartment. He hides the evidence of his dark side before letting her in. She's there to check on him since he hasn't been to group therapy for a while. He wants her out. Her kindness and encouragement will never quell his darkness. But she believes otherwise. The two fall in love, but Jack still struggles with his murderous impulses. He leaves to take care of some business and asks her to wait for him. He gives Mayflower the painting, takes his money, and leaves this gruesome business behind. The artist and his new love will get married the following morning. He waits for her for hours and finally jumps to the conclusion she's left him. That night, he receives a telegram from the hospital. She was the victim of a hit and run and is in critical condition. As Sharon waits for Jack, she finds his Polaroids of the, let's call them, inspirational deceased. She doesn't even want to give Jack a chance to explain, but he claims to not be that person anymore. She runs away, and he chases after her into the street, only to see her get hit by a taxi. A very dangerous and very expensive operation is her only hope of survival in both the comic and the show. The artist's only hope is to paint something truly terrible, something worth $100,000. He murders the first person he sees and paints all through the night. The old man refuses to pay the increased price, so the artist takes the money by force. Mayflower, however, agrees to the amount. Cash in hand, the artist rushes to the hospital. They can perform the operation, but the bad news keeps coming. The only doctor who could have done the risky procedure has been murdered. The artist sits in the waiting room, waiting for the death of his beloved. The show takes things one step further, hinting at Jack's arrest. Easel Kill Ya is the first episode shot by cinematographer Rick Boda, who with 23 episodes has shot more of the Crypt than anyone else. He even went on to shoot the first Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight. With bleak visual flourishes, such as the pale colors of Mayflower's scenes, use of a split diopter, and closing the blinds on the final shot, it's easy to see why Boda was invited back time and time again. I can't wait to see what images he brings to the Crypt's canvas in upcoming episodes. But A Tale from the Crypt doesn't rely solely on the visuals. Tim Roth as Jack paints us a picture of a tortured heart, straddling the thin line between light and dark. It would be easy for us to dismiss his initial self-loathing for a pathetic personality, but just like Sharon, we see his potential and want to watch him succeed. Even though Jack's worst enemy is himself, William Atherton adds to the antagonistic force within Jack as Malcolm Mayflower. The man is merely an eccentric collector of niche art, and with lots of money to spare. Through Jack's eyes, we see him as a villain, an enabler. The previous episode gifted us with a rare, happy ending, and this episode makes us pay for it. Arguably the darkest ending so far. Easel Kill Ya is a tragic tale of a terrible person who turns his life around, only to fall back into old habits in order to try to save a loved one, but ends up trapped in a figurative and literal prison. It's Tales from the Crypt perfection.